You know furry fandom for its creativity and strong bonds, but then you learn some members are accused of grotesque acts with animals. Others are linked to kidnapping, grooming, and even murder. Welcome to the disturbing furry iceberg. Tier 1, the surface, the special toppings pizza incident. So this one might just be the most infamous furry convention stunt of all time. In October 2021, at Big Little FurCon or BLFC in Nevada, a fursuiter who went by Maned Wolfie decided to throw what he called a nut pizza party. Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like. A month before the con, he actually put out a Twitter poll asking of his followers if they'd be willing to put sauce on a pizza for the party. Nearly 600 people voted, and almost 70% said yes. So when BLFC weekend rolled around, he ordered 6 Papa John's pizzas, set up a room, and invited guys to, well, contribute. By 10:30 p.m., photos and tweets started spreading online. One of them bragged, "We're officially on 10, well, contributors." Minutes later, the number was up to 19. Photos showed fursuiters circling the box, some mid-act, and the whole thing instantly became meme fuel. Now, no one actually ate the pizza because that would be messed up. Instead, Maned Wolfie admitted it was dumped in a public hotel hallway. Attendees took photos of the soggy box sitting there for hours before it was finally thrown away. By the next morning, the incident had blown up online. Furries, non-furries, even people who'd never been near the fandom were disgusted. One reply summed it up perfectly. Fun fact, minors can work as cleaning staff at hotels, and the idea that an underage staff member might have been the one forced to clean it up is what made this stunt feel way over the line. Despite all that, there was never any official statement from the BLFC staff or the hotel. No police report, no charges, and no bans. The pizza was trashed and nobody was physically harmed. But the risk that some kid could have been the one to deal with it is why this moment stuck as one of the most reckless and notorious stunts in furry convention history. Wolfie Blackheart. In January 2010, there was a photo in 4chan that instantly blew up into one of the strangest, most disturbing internet controversies of the decade. It showed someone holding a severed dog's head against a rainbow backdrop. Within hours, anonymous users traced the image back to a teenager in San Antonio who called herself Wolfie Blackheart. Wolfie's real name is Sarah Rodriguez, and she wasn't just another edgy teen. She ran a group called the Crimson Blood Wolf Pack, a circle of kids who believed they were wolves, wore tails and collars, and howled in the woods together. For Wolfie, that identity went deep. She claimed her wolf side came out after a childhood car accident, and even said her Tourette's made her yip like one. Her house was covered in wolf posters, skulls, knives, even the preserved head of her dead chihuahua. She said it was her way of honoring animals through preservation, but to the internet, it came off as something twisted and dangerous. When the dog head photo went viral, people accused her of killing a neighbor's missing Chow Mix dog. Wolfie insisted the animal was roadkill, brought to her by a friend. She admitted she used a pocket knife to decapitate it in her kitchen, boiled the head to clean the skull, and left it outside for the remains to rot. She even explained the technique in detail, like she was giving a how-to. The San Antonio police searched her house, found knives and skulls, but forensic tests confirmed the dog was dead before she touched it. In Texas, that meant no crime. But legality didn't matter online. News stations surfed the controversy and racked up millions of views. Her supporters posted YouTube defenses calling her misunderstood, while critics called her a budding serial killer. Her MySpace and Fur Affinity accounts vanished, and she was flooded with threats, prank calls, and harassment. The fallout hit hard. The Crimson Blood Wolfpack scattered, and the group never really recovered. 2 younger members tragically died by suicide not long after, though it wasn't proven those deaths were directly tied to the controversy. Around the same time, Wolfie's house burned down, adding even more chaos to her life. After that, she disappeared from public view. There's rumors about her death, but nothing's ever been confirmed. So now you're thinking Wolfie's case is disturbing, right? At least she claimed she was only dealing with animals that were already dead. Later tiers get into people who used live ones. Just wait until tier 4. Confederate Fursuit. If Wolfie Blackheart got attention for shock and death, Magnus Deridian was infamous for provocations that got him booted from cons. His real name was Robert Suchkowski, and by the mid-2010s, he'd built a reputation as one of the fandom's most annoying trolls. Back in 2015, he showed up at Midwest Furfest in a wolf fursuit plastered with a Confederate battle flag. He claimed it was about Southern pride or pro-Trump politics, but inside a community that leans heavily progressive, It was like tossing gasoline on a fire. Securities immediately stopped him, worried someone might literally swing on him, and banned him for his own safety. But that didn't keep him away. 2 years later, at Midwest Furfest again, he went even further. He wore a spiked German helmet, marched through the lobby shouting Nazi slogans, and threw slurs at the crowd. When staff tried to stop him, he shoved one, ran outside, and hid in the bushes. Police arrested him for trespassing and assault after he was forced to strip off the suit. The reaction from furries were pure disgust. Most of the community is strongly against hate groups, and the sight of a Nazi-style wolf suit in their biggest convention felt both offensive and unsafe. A furry news blog later said Zachkowski had a criminal record with other felonies, even a reported chemical attack at a bank, which we will talk about in the next entry. Magnus ended up banned from multiple events and cut off from the community. He wanted attention, and for a while he got it. But in the end, people only remembered the chaos he dragged into places that were meant to be weird in better ways. Tier 2, just below the surface. Midwest Furfest Chlorine Gas Attack. It's past midnight at Midwest Furfest at Hyatt Regency O'Hare Hotel, one of the biggest furry conventions in the country. Thousands of people come in full animal costumes and are gearing up for a midnight howl. But suddenly, a sharp bleach-like stench spreads across the hotel's 9th floor. At first, it's confusing, but it quickly became terrifying. People start coughing, their eyes burning, and their lungs on fire. By 12:40 in the morning, fire crews rush into the hotel. They find chlorine gas saturating the hallway. Not just a minor leak either. A whole area of the building poisoned. Within minutes, every guest inside, which is roughly 5,400 people, was forced out into the cold Chicago night. Imagine the scene. Thousands of furries in colorful suits, along with regular hotel guests, all shivering outside while first responders scramble inside. 19 people are taken to the hospital. They're dizzy, nauseous, struggling to breathe. Thankfully, all are treated and released, but the message from police is chilling. This wasn't an accident. The way the device was set up suggested someone wanted this to happen. Suddenly, Furfest 2014 has become the site of one of the largest chemical attacks in the United States in decades. Of course, the FBI jumped in the case. At one point, they even looked at a Magnus Deridian, since he'd been fighting with a constaff that weekend. Some people claimed they found tape in his place that matched the evidence, but that was never proven. Magnus denied it all, and with no solid evidence, the case went nowhere. For the community, it was a shock. Conventions tightened security after that, and online. People were just glad nobody died, but the memory of that night never really went away. So yeah, a hotel full of furries got hit with the biggest chemical attack in America that decade, and the person who did it is still out there. Roblox creator with NSFW furry account. In the Roblox community, Nitro Lord was a name people knew for harmless reasons. He made videos about the history of Roblox, lost games, and old avatar styles. By 2024, he had more than 150,000 subscribers and millions of views. To his mostly young audience, he looked like a safe bet. But behind that channel, he had another, more adult personality. On Twitter, he's using the name @LoreBunny. This account shared adult furry art, even fetish stuff like diapers and sexual puppy drawings. The problem was, his Roblox account and those adult accounts weren't kept separate. One of them linked straight back to his Roblox profile, so kids who followed him could find it without even trying. And since a huge part of Roblox players are under 13, yeah, people weren't okay with that. Things blew up in early 2025. Big Roblox YouTubers like Ruben Sim, Green Lego Cats 123, and Schlepp made videos showing screenshots that tied his Roblox and furry accounts together. They called him out for putting adult content in reach of kids. Those videos hit millions of views, and the story spread everywhere. Nitro responded with an apology video. He admitted to bad judgment, owned up to the diaper fetish content, and tried to insist it was meant for adults only. But he never really addressed how easy it was for kids to stumble across it. And around the same time, he and his girlfriend also promoted what they called an all-ages furry party. Critics called that reckless, though it's not clear if minors were actually involved. Roblox banned his main account. Twitter took down his alt accounts. Sponsors pulled out. And within weeks, his channel lost tens of thousands of subscribers. By 2025, Nitro Lord is still online, but with a fractured reputation. His story turned into a cautionary tale about responsibility. But at least this guy didn't try to go after minors directly. Because 2 entries from now, we've got another furry, not just sharing content, but actually doing that virtually with their victims. Don't Hug Cacti. Don't Hug Cacti, or DHC, used to be a huge name in the furry world. Lucky Coyote and his partner Scuff started it back in 2007, and over the years, they made more than 800 custom fursuits. Their stuff was known for being super tough and high quality, and Lucky even got invited to conventions as a guest of honor. For a while, DHC was at the top. Then, in September 2020, it all came crashing down. A Twitter user dropped a 90-page Google Doc filled with anonymous testimonies accusing Lucky of grooming minors, talking about zoophilia, animal neglect, and manipulative behavior. It included screenshots from chats and old posts, but there weren't any police reports or court records to back it up. DHC went on Twitter to deny everything, saying they didn't condone illegal activity. Lucky stepped back from social media and said she needed help with personal issues. A few days later, the company said they'd be taking legal action, which a lot of people saw as trying to shut victims up. That made the backlash even bigger. Lucky later called it a smear campaign and went on podcasts to deny it, but critics pointed out contradictions and said Scuff was running the conversation. Meanwhile, the person who posted a document got slapped with a cease and desist letter, but raised enough money for legal help in a single day. The fandom split down in the middle. Some said there was way too much testimony for it all to be fake. Others said anonymous claims without proof can destroy someone unfairly. By 2025, Don't Hug Cacti is still around, but their reputation is wrecked. Even owning one of their suits turned into an argument. Hypnotist Sapho. This one starts with a YouTuber who called herself Hypnotist Sapho. Her whole thing was this weird, kind of specific niche. She'd go into VR chat, you know, that VR social game, and she'd run these public group hypnosis sessions. It was all about relaxation and ASMR. She built up this small, trusting community around it. But behind the scenes, things got really dark. Back in mid-2021, she privately messaged this 16-year-old user on Discord. First, she played the mother figure, then moved into private, explicit brainwashing sessions with him in VR. Thankfully, the kid realized how messed up it was and reported her. VR chat mods permabanned her almost immediately for exploiting a minor. And this is all just words and virtual characters, but someone is actually sending inappropriate photos to kids and asking them to do the same. And that's coming up in the next entry. For now, let's keep going with this one. But getting banned didn't stop her. She just took her whole show public. She started her own Discord server and even made an NSFW channel that she said was for fursuit art. Yeah, no, it was actually for sharing animals doing that. When a mod straight up asked her if she was into animals, Sapho didn't really give a yes or no. So the mods and a bunch of members did the only thing they could do. They called her out publicly. In September 2021, Sapho posted a 36-minute YouTube video called Coming Out About Things. And in it, she just says it outright. She is a zoo. She admitted she's attracted to animals, specifically dogs. And she tried to make it sound like it was an LGBT thing, using that line, "Who are we to judge?" Tier 3. Convictions and documented crimes. Groomed 12 years old via DeviantArt. Zelda Wolf was the online alias of a guy named Aaron Thomas Usuri from Arizona. Back around 2014, he was active on DeviantArt. He was just another furry artist, creating art, interacting with fans, building a following. But that persona was a trap. Usuri, who was 21 years old at the time, specifically targeted two 12-year-old girls who were fans of his artwork on that site. It started innocently enough, just talking about art, but it quickly, deliberately escalated into abuse. According to a Phoenix New Times investigation, police learned he was engaged in virtual adult relationships with these kids over Skype and Google Hangouts. He was sending them nude photos of himself and getting them to send stuff back. In March 2015, one of the girls' parents finally discovered the chats and called the authorities. Police raided Usuri's home on April 11th. They seized his computer, his laptops, his camera, and what they found on those devices was beyond damning. They found the nude photos of minors, which was bad enough to put him away, but then they found something else. The police found video evidence on his computer of Usuri having oral intercourse with his own pet dog. This isn't an allegation from some online drama thread. This is from a police evidence report published in a major newspaper. The evidence was so overwhelming that Usuri just confessed. He did a televised jailhouse interview where he admitted everything, and even expressed remorse. He even posted a final goodbye note on his DeviantArt page after the raid, basically admitting he was caught. He pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including adult exploitation of a minor and bestiality. In December 2016, a judge sentenced Aaron Thomas Usury to 17 years in prison. Growly. This one is a masterclass in how a predator can hide in plain sight for years, using the community itself as a shield. This is Growly. His real name is Daniel Mizuho Yamas. He's been in the fandom since 1999, a known face at huge cons like Further Confusion and Anthrocon. He'd volunteer, run panels, take pictures in his custom Growlith fursuit. He built this whole friendly, approachable persona, but that persona was a carefully constructed lie. Because in 2001, when Daniel was 25, he and his 30-year-old boyfriend, Troy Gade, met a 14-year-old boy online. Yamas sent the kid a lewd pic, and they met him at a Victorville hotel, where the boy said Gade assaulted him, and they took photos. Cops nabbed Daniel at his Van Nuys place on 5 charges, like lewd acts with a minor and using a kid for corn. He tried denying it, but the evidence was too much. He pleaded no contest, got convicted on 1 count of lewd acts with a kid aged 14 or 15, did about 2.5 years in prison, and landed on California's Megan's Law website as a lifelong offender. But here's the infuriating part, dude. After his parole wrapped up around 2004, he just slipped back into cons by 2008. Some furries, totally clueless about his past, were cool with him. Others started sounding alarms. He kept volunteering, running panels, acting all chill. Fur Affinity kicked him out in 2009 for messaging someone claiming to be a minor all sketchy-like, but he still showed up at cons no problem. For years, people tried to sound the alarm. They'd post his criminal record, they'd share the chat logs, and for years he had defenders. People said he'd changed, that he'd done his time, that this was all just drama. Then, in July 2019, the LAPD's Juvenile Division arrested him again, this time for possessing CP. Cops found nasty stuff on his devices. He took a plea deal, got 158 days time served and 3 years probation in November 2019. This one's a gut punch about how a community that's all about being open and forgiving can get totally played by someone who kept raising red flags. Being inclusive is great, but sometimes you gotta know who to keep out. Wingless Forest Dragon. This one isn't about hidden desires or secret online chats. This is a straight-up kidnapping. A cross-country crime that started in a furry gallery and ended with an Amber Alert. This is the story of Zachary Jones, also known as Kilo or Wingless Forest Dragon, and a 16-year-old girl named Kira Inman. Kira, who went by Ayana Wolf online, was from Spokane, Washington. She was developmentally delayed with a mental capacity closer to an 11-year-old. She found community in the furry fandom on Fur Affinity, a place where she probably felt accepted. But that's also where she met Zachary Jones, a 28-year-old man from Virginia. They started talking in early 2016 and slowly developed a relationship. Kira's grandmother would later find diary entries that showed the terrifying truth. Jones had been coaching her for weeks. He told her exactly what to pack, right down to her most precious belongings, her blanket and her stuffed dog. She even wrote that no one should look for her and that she isn't coming back. On May 1st, 2016, she told her grandma she was going for a walk. She never came back. Her family tracked her phone for 10 minutes before it was shut off, already miles away. The Spokane police issued an Amber Alert immediately. They knew this wasn't a typical runaway. They named Jones as the suspect, driving a blue 1997 Acura with Virginia plates. For 48 hours, this guy drove a vulnerable teenager across the country, over 2,200 miles from Washington to Ohio. He knew about the Amber Alert. He saw it on the news, and he just kept driving. They were finally caught just outside of Columbus, Ohio at a rest stop. A state trooper doing a routine check found them both asleep in the car. Jones was arrested on the spot for first-degree kidnapping. Kira was taken to a hospital and then safely returned to her family. The evidence was overwhelming. Her diary, their online messages, it all showed his manipulation. He pleaded guilty. In February 2017, he was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. The furry community's reaction was instant and furious. Fur Affinity banned both accounts. People were horrified that someone could use the fandom's trust to pull off something this calculated. This was a 30-year-old man preying on a developmentally disabled child and driving her across the nation. David Parker. So this next story is really dark. It's not just about one creepy guy. It's about a whole group of them. These men used gatherings when some wore animal costumes to explicitly abuse a young boy, starting when he was just 8 or 9. And this went on for 7 to 8 years, starting back in 2009. The main guy behind it was David Parker, and he was actually related to the boy. He started taking the kid to these events, some at the home of a man named Kenneth Fenska, where men, including Fenska, dressed as a red fox, allegedly assaulted the child. The nightmare finally ended in 2016. The victim was 14 by then, and finally found the strength to tell someone what was happening. This sparked a massive investigation by the Pennsylvania Attorney General's Office, FBI, and other agencies. So what happened to them? David Parker, the guy who started it all, pleaded guilty to trafficking a minor. He got 30 years in federal prison. Craig Knox, one of the main abusers, also pleaded guilty. He got 13 to 26 years in state prison. Another guy in the ring, Jeffrey Harvey, got caught in a 2016 sting trying to meet an undercover agent posing as a 13-year-old. He pleaded guilty and got 20 months to 5 years in 2018. Even Knox's roommate, Stephen Taylor, got in trouble. Cops found evidence of bestiality and animal cruelty during a search, so he got 18 months to 5 years. But here's the kicker that's gonna make you mad. The party host, Kenneth Fenska, he was the only one who got off. A jury acquitted him in 2018. They said the victim's story had some inconsistencies, which sadly happens a lot when a kid has been traumatized for so long. The actual furry community wanted nothing to do with these guys. They were very clear that these weren't furry events. They were abuse parties that just used costumes as a disguise. Khord Kitty. Alright, this entry is different from the other entries. It's a case built entirely on allegations, on divorce court claims, and on community gossip that never quite made it to a police report. This is the story of Khord Kitty. His real name was Gabriel Sickle, and he was known as a furry entertainer, a songwriter, a guy who danced at cons. But around 2021, these absolutely horrific stories started bubbling up from private forums and from his own divorce proceedings. The allegations are a laundry list of some of the worst things you can imagine. People at cons knew him first for his notoriously bad hygiene, saying his fursuit reeked so badly that people would just avoid him. But that was the least of it. His ex-wife, during a bitter custody battle, made some stomach-turning claims. She alleged he had bookmarks on his computer for bestiality guides, including one that literally said how to have relations with your dog. She said he was accessing known animal abuse fetish sites, and then she gave this specific graphic detail that she once walked in on him using peanut butter to perform an adult act with their family dog. And according to her, Khord Kitty admitted to her that he had explicit contact with dogs multiple times. But it gets worse. There were claims that he wanted to bring his infant son into adult diaper roleplay events as some kind of joke, and that he commissioned erotic cub art, which is art featuring underage animal characters that depicted his own son in NSFW contexts. He was also said to have friends in the community who were already convicted zoophiles and predators, and that he himself, well into his 30s, was chatting with teenagers. Now here's the most critical part. None of this was ever verified by law enforcement. There are no public police records, no arrests, no news reports to back any of this up. In the end, all that remains is accusation and silence. Tier 4. The Abyss. A furry obsessed with eating feces. Brown-Nosed Pup, better known as Messy Tails, was an anonymous furry persona who built his entire online presence around one thing: poop. It's not even a joke. He literally lived and breathed scat fetish. Over the years, his feed is literally a public diary of fantasies about smearing, eating, and bathing in feces. At first, it read like a shock humor roleplay, but then it got real. By 2016, he started posting actual photos of his hands and objects smeared in filth. He bragged about peanut butter and poop sandwiches, milkshakes laced with his own mess, even using poop lube. The more he posted, the more disturbing it became. By 2017, things hit a breaking point. He tweeted about being hospitalized and put on meds, only to come home and relapse immediately. His words got darker. I need to find a way to become psychologically, irreversibly addicted to shit and can't stop eating poop. A few months later, his final post simply admitted he can't stop before everything went silent. After January 2018, Messy Tails was gone. What happened after is speculation. Some claimed he died. Others guess he was institutionalized. Nothing was ever confirmed. Mr. Teriyaki and Acid Raincloud. Mr. Teriyaki and Acid Raincloud were a married couple best known for their convention dance routines and flashy YouTube videos. Teriyaki wore a rat fursuit. Acid was his partner, and together they built a reputation as fun-loving performers. That reputation burned down in August 2023. It started with leaked chat logs. Someone going by Soul's Movie dropped transcripts showing Acid Raincloud casually describing an adult practice that shocked even the most jaded corners of the fandom. According to the leak, during the lewd moments, she would fill her fursuit with water and live fish. Then Teriyaki would join in. The result? Fish dying during intercourse, or tossed back into the bowl afterward like nothing happened. Acid even admitted, almost playfully, "It sounds kind of harsh to the fish, but it's kind of amazing." The scandal exploded. The leaked logs and alleged video evidence lined up with Acid's own words. The fallout was fast. Discord servers lit up. Furry YouTubers exposed them. Fans who once admired their dance tutorials now expressed disgust by the animal cruelty. Legally, nothing happened, but the fandom didn't let it go, now cemented in furry infamy. Why fish? Some speculated it was just paraphilic escalation, pushing boundaries until they hit something shocking but accessible. Pet store goldfish are cheap and easy to get, which made them the unlucky victims. The most disturbing part wasn't just the act itself, but how casually Acid described it, like it was no big deal. Wolf SS. If Khord Kitty and Teriyaki were disturbing, this one's on another level. In 2018, the furry and animal rights world collided when the name Wolf SS started surfacing in leaked Telegram chat logs. Behind the alias was Ruben Marrero Pernas, a 36-year-old Cuban neuroscientist who wasn't just into zoophilia, he was filming Zoosadism, which is graphic torture and killing of animals, and sharing it like it was nothing. Investigators linked him to the zoo sadist telegram groups, exposed by a whistleblower named Pseudonym. They were trading videos of abuse, and Marrero himself posted clips of dogs suffering at his hands. One of the most infamous acts was him smearing honey on a wooden stake, then letting fire ants swarm the dog tied to it. His messages read cold, clinical, like he was doing experiments. And yet, he casually admitted he got the idea from music like Bush Pig and snuff porn gore. Animal rights activists and furries worked together to unmask him. A simple photo at Havana's famous Capella ice cream parlor matched images on his Beast Forum profile, and when police searched his grandparents' property, they found the corpses of 6 dogs. 2 others, a German Shepherd and Rottweiler, were still alive. The 2 dogs were rescued and rehomed by Cuba's leading animal welfare group, CEDA. You'd think that would be enough to lock him away, but here's the horrifying twist. In 2018, Cuba had no animal cruelty laws. Marrero was briefly detained. It's not clear, but the suspicion is that it's pornography. Shortly after that, he was released. He lost his neuroscience job, sure, but by January 2019, he was already trying to adopt more dogs. The public outcry was massive. Over 400 Cubans marched in Havana on April 7, 2019, demanding animal protection laws. It became Cuba's first independent protest of its kind, and eventually led to a new welfare legislation in 2021. But none of that applied retroactively to Marrero, and now his whereabouts are unclear. Quantum Kitty. His name was Sean Patrick Crazy, but online he called himself Quantum Kitty. On the surface, he was just another gamer fur, posting casual videos and hanging around Telegram servers. But behind the scenes, Craze was hiding a life that would land him 7 years in prison. Craze was a former US Marine from Virginia who, after leaving the service, leaned into the online world. He built a fursona, a blue cat named Quantum Kitty, and got involved in furry and Therian groups. But unlike most, he wasn't just role-playing. He openly identified as a zoophile. On a 2021 pro-zoophilia podcast called Zooier Than Thou, he argued animals could consent through body language. It made people uncomfortable then, but no one realized just how far he was going in real life. The cracks showed when his former friend exposed him in late 2021. Screenshots revealed Craze bragging about abusing his own puppy, sending bestiality videos to minors, and even admitting to necrophilic acts with a deer carcass he found. Neighbors later reported a foul stench coming from his property, which made sense when investigators found animal remains in his fridge. Police raided his house in June 2022. They uncovered hard drives full of graphic videos, footage of him with his dog, with a deer carcass, and chat logs where he bragged about distributing these clips. Metadata linked the files directly to his devices. It was undeniable. By August 2024, Craze was in Roanoke County Circuit Court, pleading guilty to distributing obscene material, intent to distribute, and 2 counts of aggravated animal cruelty. He was sentenced to 7 years behind bars, ordered to register as an adult offender, and his abused puppy was rehomed. The community's response was swift. Fur Affinity banned him, furry forums condemned him, and even the podcast that once gave him a platform went into hiding. Snake Thing and Dog Dude. In 2016, 2 names, Snake Thing and Dog Dude, became tied to one of the worst animal cruelty cases the furry community has ever seen. Snake Thing was Levi Simmons, a legally blind furry from Everett, Washington. Dog Dude was Timothy Morasso, a 64-year-old with decades of zoophile history and a reputation for sadism going back to the 1990s. The 2 met up after buying a 12-week-old puppy off Craigslist. They took it to Motel 6. At first, it just looked like another shady meetup, but what happened inside that room was far worse. The puppy was tortured, explicitly abused, and filmed. Simmons later bragged about it in private Zoosadist Telegram chats, uploading the footage for others to see. Chat logs showed Morasso coaching him through it, even referencing his own past acts, including a Labrador named Chunky he'd tormented years earlier. Court documents would later describe the video as grotesque and depraved. The puppy didn't survive. For 2 years, the crime stayed hidden. Then, in 2018, whistleblower Pseudonym linked the Zoosadist Telegram groups. Activists traced the footage back to Simmons, and police raided his home. On his phone and computer, they found more Zoosadist material. By January 2019, Simmons pled guilty to animal cruelty. He was sentenced to 18 months in prison, probation, and banned from owning pets. His disability earned him some sympathy, but most agreed he chose to be complicit. Morasso managed to escape. In 2019, he emailed someone claiming he was under investigation and looking for help, but he kept posting under zoophile accounts for months after. In the end, he's never been convicted. The case horrified the furry community and put a spotlight on how zoosadist groups were spreading on apps like Telegram, a reminder of how easily predators exploit gaps in the system. Tier 5. The Deep Freeze. Kero the Wolf. In 2018, the furry fandom faced what many call its darkest moment. The name at the center of it, Kero the Wolf, or his real name, Joshua Hoffman. He was a YouTuber with a big following. Someone who'd even appeared in Shane Dawson's documentary series, explaining furry life to a mainstream audience. For years, he presented himself as proof that the fandom was wholesome and harmless. Then came the leaks. In September 2018, a massive dump of private Telegram chat logs hit the internet. They showed a secret ring of users swapping stories and files about raping, torturing, and even killing animals. Some of the messages described filming the acts, and in those chats, Kero's name kept popping up. The reaction was immediate. Reddit threads blew up. Furry news outlets reported that Kero had been outed as both a zoophile and a necrophile. YouTubers made breakdown videos comparing him to the O.J. Simpson of the furries, accusing him of trying to gaslight the public into thinking he was innocent. Kero's defense was shaky from the start. At first, he said he'd explain everything. Later, he insisted the logs were faked or taken out of context. When confronted with photo evidence, like an image where a tattoo matched his own, he claimed it proved nothing. In 2021, he even uploaded a video titled My Side, where he admitted police had searched his computer but stressed that no charges were ever brought. Not because he was cleared, but because investigators didn't have enough evidence to make a legit case. And that's where it ended. Despite the leaks, outrage, and police interviews, Kero has never been criminally charged. The case showed how hard it is to prosecute online animal cruelty. Even with anonymous chat logs, leaked screenshots, and disturbing content, it's rarely enough to move through court. Carpet sample. Every fandom has its oddballs, but in the furry scene, one name sticks out for how bizarre and unsettling his reputation became. William Clark, better known as Shadow Wolves, or more mockingly, Carpet Sample. The nickname came from his fursuit, which looked like it was stitched together from a pile of random stuffed animals, a patchwork creation that made him instantly recognizable at cons. Shadow Wolf's wasn't just eccentric. He openly identified as a plushophile, someone with an adult attraction to stuffed toys. In the furry world, where plushies are common props in costumes, that alone might not raise eyebrows. But the stories surrounding Clark pushed things into disturbing territory. Community walks and forum posts have spread claims about his behavior, including allegations that he made inappropriate comments at conventions. For example, he was reportedly banned from Method Fur Meet for proposing an adult encounter with a fellow furry and her service animal in an elevator. These stories, along with other accusations about his personal action, are online, but still unproven rumors that shaped his pariah status. An anonymous complaint was filed with Bloomington, Indiana's animal control, claiming that Clark was abusing animals and had become an infamous furry content creator. Officials responded that the tip was outdated, as Clark no longer lived in Bloomington, and they found no evidence to support the allegations. That's the tricky part with Shadow Wolf's. Beyond the patchwork fursuit and his own admissions of plushophilia, everything else exists in this hazy zone of rumors, anonymous posts, and wiki entries. No charges, no independent reporting, no court filings, just stories repeated enough that they've turned into internet lore. In the end, William Clark remains a fringe figure, known for his bizarre costume and taboo interests, and associated with allegations that have never been substantiated in court. Carpet Sample became shorthand for one of the most debated scandals the fandom ever whispered about. Lockjaw Arts. Most furry scandals are about drama, not death. But in 2020, a case out of Las Vegas stunned the fandom and the wider world. It involved Lockjaw Arts, a small fursuit-making business run by Tanya Dillard and her partner, Jacob Berkovitz. On the internet, they went by Vincent Vex and Jax. They built elaborate wolf and dragon costumes, posting progress pics, taking commissions, and charging thousands of dollars. But behind the scenes, their shop was collapsing. Customers complained of endless delays, refunds went missing, and Dillard's own posts revealed the stress. We're behind on commissions due to mental health flares. Sorry to our clients. By early 2020, they were broke, depressed, and desperate. That desperation turned deadly. On March 27, 2020, the couple posted a Craigslist ad posing as an adult meetup. Their real plan was darker. Lure someone, rob them, and steal their car to escape into the woods. Their target was Hector Mendez Hernandez, a 44-year-old local man. He drove them home, but instead of a fling, he was ambushed. Berkovitz shot him, stabbed him more than 25 times, and smashed him with a dumbbell. The coroner later ruled Hector died from blunt force trauma, with the gunshots and stabs as contributing injuries. Dillard was grazed by a stray bullet in the chaos. What made this worse? Dillard messaged a friend on Facebook, claiming they'd killed and skinned a dog, then saying, "If you think that's strange, I'm sitting next to a dead body." Then, she sent photos of the victim's body. Of course, the friend was horrified and called the police. Later that evening, officers stopped the couple driving Hector's Mercedes. When questioned, Berkovitz convinced on the spot. The body's in the bathroom. In court, the stories conflicted. Berkovitz said it was a reaction to Hector's advances. Dillard admitted outright they planned the murder. Both were charged with murder with a deadly weapon, robbery, and conspiracy. Court records do not publicly confirm their sentences, but they were held without bail as of March 2020. For the furry community, the Lockjaw Arts murder was a shock. What started as a struggling fursuit shop spiraled into one of the most brutal crimes ever associated with the fandom. It's remembered as a tragic case of violence, far removed from the costumes that defined their public persona. The Yost Family. The Yost family looked like the picture of a wholesome furry household. Jennifer Goodwill Yost, her husband Christopher, and their kids, including 17-year-old Caitlin, were active in the Southern California furry scene. They bowled with friends at La Habra Fur Bowling, went to prancing skilled hair meetups, and Jennifer was even seen as the community mom for her kindness and making clothes for her kids. But in 2016, things changed when Caitlin grew close in the furry community with two older furries, 25-year-old Frank Felix and 21-year-old Josh Acosta. Her parents disapproved her relationship with Felix, and this created tension between them. On September 24, 2016, a 911 call came in from a terrified 6-year-old. Police arrived to find Jennifer, Christopher, and a family friend, Arthur Billy Boucher, dead from gunshot wounds. The two youngest children survived, while Caitlin was initially reported missing. Within a day, police arrested Acosta and Felix, and Caitlin was found with them. Investigators said Catlin told Acosta she was abused by her stepfather. She testified that she planned to tell her mother about the abuse and run away with their help. But Acosta entered the home with a shotgun provided by Felix and killed 3 people. Felix waited outside, supplied the weapon, destroyed the evidence, and was held criminally liable. Both men were charged with 3 counts of murder with special circumstances. Joshua Acosta was convicted in 2018 and sentenced to life in prison without parole, plus 75 years. Frank Felix was convicted in 2024 and sentenced to life without parole in 2025. Catlin, initially treated as a suspect, was granted immunity in exchange for her testimony against Acosta. For parts of the furry community, the case was devastating. Jennifer had been widely liked, and her death turned a wholesome furry family into the focus of a tragic murder trial. That's all the furries we have for this iceberg. See you guys in the next one.